Hello and good day, relatives. Jeremy Fields here from Thrive Unlimited and the New Tradition Podcast. Want to welcome you guys to today's episode and shout y'all out. Thank you for sharing out the episode, sharing out the podcast. We've been getting some phenomenal response from everybody, and I'm really appreciating the feedback, and my wife as well. But we're here today on behalf of the Brothers Keeper Edition, and I'm really happy today. Excited. I got my brother, my man right here. I got Kansas Middletent on with us, and he's got some really good insight and some story about his life to share, about his challenges and his triumphs and how it's kind of led him to his passion and his work here. So we're really blessed to have the brother on today. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to him to give a little bit more of an introduction of who he is. So go ahead, brother.
Hey, thanks, Kola. How medaka pi tashtunkwikokia imanchia pi naha yuha chante washtea na pechi yuzapi. Hello, my relatives. My name is Kansas Middletent, and I'm really grateful to be here with all of you today. Thank you, Kola, Jeremy, and your family for having me today. Like I said, my name's Kansas Middleton. I'm an enrolled member of the Lower Sioux tribe, and I live on the Lower Indian Reservation in the heart and center of central South Dakota. I guess I have a few different professional titles, but to tell you the truth, those don't mean too much to me. The titles that mean a lot to me are father, husband. I don't know if I'm the better half or not, but it's there. And I'm a son. And overall, I guess I like to just, I kind of deem this title myself, but a community champion. And I just try to, be the best example, role model I can be for my community and the younger generation. Things that are my passions is most people won't say this, but I have a small business that is dedicated to growth and development of not just myself, but our Indigenous people. And so I run that, and it's called Rising Stars. And that's one of my passions, is to help not just Native communities, but all communities and all people, help get us back to those stars where we belong.
Right on. Yeah. So I guess it's been about maybe a year since we kind of had first connected, right? I had recently kind of made my way up here to South Dakota. My wife is from here, but I'm originally from Oklahoma, and had caught wind of some of the work that you had been doing in the area, through different people in the area, and then just kind of seeing through social media and things, and kind of keeping up with you. And I've really been inspired, by you and the things that you're doing. I really appreciate what you were saying there about, not being so caught up in the professional titles, but what you value most is who you are as a person, as a man, as a father, as a husband, and as a relative. I think those things are important in this day and time, because outside influence, like always, I guess in greater society always encourages us to be recognized or kind of seeking recognition and validation through professional spaces and things like that, and kind of puts being a good person and a good relative on the back burner. Like it doesn't seem like we're very much encouraged to be really good husbands or caretakers and fathers, especially in our Indigenous communities. So definitely appreciate that, and all the work that you do to kind of advocate for a healthier version of our men and our people in our communities, so that kind of, I guess, sets the tone for the conversation that we have ahead. I had some questions that we've been facilitating in these kind of interviews, and usually how it starts off is kind of moving backwards in your life and kind of giving us an understanding as to where it is that you come from, and I know that for myself as an Indigenous man, when I look back at my childhood and in my upbringing, there were a lot of adversities and challenges that I faced. Part of my life was spent on the res, and then part of it was off. Like during the week, I went to school in a non-Native community, but on the weekend, holidays and ceremony times, I was right there with my folks. But in that, I faced a lot of challenges, a lot of racism and different types of things. And even in our Indigenous communities, there's adversities that we face, amidst one another. But I know that had a huge effect on my life, and I wanted to ask you, speaking of those challenges and those adversities, is that something that resonates with you? And, how did those type of experiences affect you?
Hey, Kola, everything you said actually was just, kind of, I guess in the healing world, we call it triggers, but a lot of stuff kind of, brought up memories, and really, I related a lot to everything you said. So yes, my life has been a lot of experiences, hardship, and just, having the need to be resilient, I guess. I always like to stress the Z on that because I'm a res boy, as you. And
Hmm.
so we had kind of no choice but to be resilient in our lifestyles. Otherwise, I don't want to be too harsh within this, but otherwise it's just, you succumb to the troubles and challenges around you.
Hmm.
And so challenges I've faced and experienced have truly been life altering to me. Um, it was moments of finding myself, um, and then when we look back, I constantly can think of a lot of the negatives that shaped me. But it's also the positives that really made me who I am. The negatives shaped and helped guide me, but the positives really helped me become who I wanted to be. Um, Overcoming those challenges were very tough. And some of the things that I can reflect back is just, some of the good things from them is, you always find a new strength from within yourself. You find something about yourself that you might not knew, a weakness that you had to overcome, something that you might have been afraid of that you really never considered. All these different things, or even facing obstacles that just really knock your shoes off and you don't even know what to do, move forward, backwards, left or right. It's just tough. But facing those, you really um you really learn that, you can move forward from anything after some of that emotion dissipates and moves forward, or you choose a better and alternative life. I guess for me, without having to overcome those fears and those just challenges, I honestly would have never found my healing. I would have never
Hmm.
found my true strength to grow and to, I would have never even um honestly been made a conscious choice to make decisions to break the negative cycle that I grew up in for my children, my spouse, and just for myself as well.
Okay. Right on. Man, I appreciate that. It kind of makes me think, like in my own experience, I know, um, coming to face those challenges, it brought out some really unhealthy effects in my life, and things that I wasn't even conscious of that was necessarily unhealthy. Like it just kind of came about and I saw it in people around me and in my community. So I never really thought to question it, but there did come a time when, um, I did become aware of it, and being able to look and see and be able to discern what was good and what wasn't, you know what I mean? Was there a time in your life that, I guess, in a way that these challenges came about, that it affected you in an unhealthy way, like in terms of your mind state or maybe your perception of self?
So actually, bro, there's one story, like I always kind of think about this, but my house kind of growing up was like the party house.
Mm.
I had to encounter parties almost every night at my house. So I would, do a lot of different things, sneak out to grandma's or whatever. But during those parties, like, you witnessed a lot of things that children should never witnessed, and it was kind of crazy because that was like normal life on the reservation. So the next day, those people at the party were all getting ready for work or their day the next day like it was normal. And one of the things that really had a negative impact on me was I was just a little kid and I would see my dad, and a group of other men and women in my community that had jobs, that had really high position titles in our community, and they would all like smoke weed in the morning together. And as a little kid, not knowing too much, thinking that you seen your hero smoking marijuana with other, I guess, people you kind of looked up to or that you thought were doing well in life, doing that, you kind of, as a little kid, you start having the perception that that's normal, that that's right, that maybe everybody does this. This is, in a sense, it was like their cup of coffee. And so, right then and there, you thinking that that stuff's normal. You think that addiction and that suppressant that you watch your hero, my father, do, you carry that with you, and you think that everybody does that before. You think instead of coffee, I thought people smoked before they went to work every morning. And
Yeah.
so it was this mentality that I had with me and carried with me until, like you, I traveled off the reservation and went to everybody's houses and stayed overnight, and nobody did that. And so it really started making me question things. And then, you have all the different programs at school and all the dare to say no different things, and you start learning that that's wrong. And so really trying to, people might not understand that, but really trying to grasp that concept, of living in two worlds, what's right, what's wrong, and so them are just little things of, and that's, I guess, just the tip of the iceberg of experiences that not just myself, but other young people carry within themselves that have an effect on how they might live the rest of their life, or how they might, set their routine up for just the everyday routine of going to work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I know in the last episode that we had with Marlon Miller, one of the things that I had expressed was, and something that he had brought up too, was just kind of the presence of like alcoholism, like substance abuse around us. And I know that for myself, it was something that I picked up at, probably the age of 14, and today as a parent, like I can't even, it's hard for me to even fathom, like my children being in that space, you know what I mean? But for me, and it's not that it was just normalized with my parents, but it was so prevalent in the community around me that when it did present itself to me, like it was nothing, like I didn't see it as like this horrible thing that, you shouldn't be touching or whatever, it was just so normalized, you know what I mean? That it just kind of made it, somewhat acceptable to me, and it was kind of the cool thing to do, so to speak. But, I think it's really important to acknowledge how dangerous it is when we normalize behaviors like that. Sometimes we're just caught up in our own processes of what we want to feel and what we want to do without thinking about what we're really contributing to community, in a negative space, or how we might be destroying, another person's life just by example. You know what I mean? So, thank you for sharing that. But I guess it leads me to the thought of, from that point in your life until, I guess maybe, coming into your adulthood, as a man, how did your perspective change, from being a child and witnessing those kinds of things and what it left you to expect of your life and community? How did I guess that perspective shift from that time to coming into your adulthood?
Um, so one thing that really changed for me is I'm kind of going to get traditional a little bit with you here. And, in the old ways, or back in the old ways, Czech twins were old people that were born again.
Mm,
And so when I was a youngster, and I was going through so many things that I didn't even, couldn't control. I moved to Pine Ridge, and it was crazy, but a lot of the elderly would always come up and check me and my brother's ears. And they would always be like, hey, tell my dad or our caretaker, like, take care of these two boys. They're old people that are here again. And we used to have, before I pierced my ears again, I used to have piercing marks. And so they would say that. And I never knew what it really meant until I got older. But even from within when I was young, I always knew that was wrong, because something inside me, I don't know how to explain it, but like my soul knew, looking at my dad and them, knew it was wrong. But it wasn't until I got older, realizing and listening and spending time with, I guess, the right people, if you will, doing positive activities and stuff, and starting to figure out, really, what's right and what's wrong,
mhm.
standing with people, business people that I looked up to, and seeing what they did with their day, and maybe even staying with friends and seeing what their parents did. And none of my friends' parents ever did anything like I shared with you. And
Yeah.
so I start kind of just in my own mind, eternalizing it and thinking, and just start getting older, and then I guess, my conscience and, my higher power and creator just always told my soul and everything that, this isn't right. This isn't the way. And so it just always, you know, I guess made me be a better person, if you will. I just always followed my intuition or my heart really the best I possibly could. And I guess honestly, what really changed my mind was seeing so many of my relatives. I was probably eighth grader in high school, and I already had 3, 4 relatives lose their life because of alcohol and drugs. And that's just not car wrecks. That's actually like cirrhosis or overdose or certain things like that they purposely weren't trying to take their life, just slowly killed themselves. And so I just seen a lot of people I didn't want to end up like as well. And I listened to them. I guess I never had a role model, so I always was like, I just seen people I didn't want to be like.
Okay. Right on, man. So, like, I guess as you're kind of talking about some of the things that you witnessed and that you went through, I guess in terms of challenge and adversity, and thinking about some of the work that you do, and how it was that you you had mentioned before that you gravitated to sports, as kind of like an outlet, or something healthy to follow. What are some of the ways that you learned, I guess, over the course of your life to respond to all of those things that you face, those challenges? What are some, I guess, healthy ways that you learn to respond?
So I guess through the years, I dealt with a lot of the problems that we're talking about as a child and a young adult. For the longest time, I really didn't have a way to cope with all these challenges. Nobody ever showed me a healthy outlet, and I honestly didn't know I had one until I really started realizing I had school, I had sports, and I had extracurricular activities that the school or community provided for us. But looking back, I wasn't given any of the tools that you or I know now to cope with our traumas and our experiences. So to tell you the truth, I internalized a lot of stuff, and I also, fought a lot. I used to fight a lot in my life, and I knew that wasn't the way to go. I really don't know entirely like what the process was. I'm trying to pinpoint exactly, what switched, but what made it, I guess it was just my grandmother and mom. I don't want to continue into share stories, but it was just seeing, how the toxic behaviors and attitudes or dysfunction that you have in your life can destroy other people around you. And so I guess I coped with being a good student. I coped with playing sports, and then the skills and the morals and the values that you gain within those from your coaches, for people that care with you, they really have an influence on you. It was the example and the model of others that I really seen, and I was like, man, these guys are living a good life. They don't treat people bad. This is kind of what I want to mimic my life to be. And so I always, kind of cling to those coaches and teachers and anybody that was kind of there to help, I guess, not really cope with my problems, but just support me through them. And I've always kind of internalized them. I kind of hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think everybody has a different process, and it's good to hear that you were able to find a support system. I think that's something that a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to really find in their life. I think a lot of times they don't find a space to have a healthy outlet for whatever, emotional challenges they're facing, or mental challenges. A lot of times, like you said, it's just internalized, but then there is no outlet. It's just something that kind of just builds and builds and builds to a point of, breaking or falling into depression. And, it just escalates to something more. But I know for myself, hip hop culture was what did it for me, and the people that were around me, because there was healthy competition, and it mirrored culture in a space where it was difficult for me to maybe connect to my indigenous culture. I was able to find something similar value systems in that culture as a b-boy and a DJ and an MC and a graffiti writer, but it gave me that healthy outlet to be able to express myself in a way that I didn't have the vocabulary for. I didn't even know how to put what I was feeling into words, but I could go and I could paint, a 20 by 10 foot, graffiti piece, and it'd all be right there in the color and the form and the shape, and I'd walk away from the wall feeling relief and feeling peace, and feeling good about myself, that I contributed something good to, that other people were going to appreciate, so, that's kind of the point, I guess, of the conversation is to kind of highlight how different people have made it through. What was it that worked for you? What was it that helped? And I guess, that kind of brings to the next point of, a lot of times the challenges that we face, they're not always necessarily outside of ourselves, but where we really come against them is internally, in terms of our emotions and our mental state. Like a lot of those challenges, they're kind of internalized and things. So in your own experience, how important do you feel it is to take care of those parts of yourself? Because as men, and especially indigenous communities, like, like it's not normalized, or it's not encouraged to talk about what you feel, or about your mental health. Like, you're just expected to show up and be on point no matter what, like have it all together, and like you don't feel anything. It's just, you know what I mean? Like you're invincible. But the reality is, like, we all face some tremendous challenges, and it does affect you mentally and emotionally. So, how important do you feel that is?
Honestly, bro, I think that's like one of the most important things you can add to your life, is finding that what brings you peace, what allows you to channel the hardships into, not even channel actually, but just releasing those hardships, not necessarily finding solutions for them, but just a process of how to actually let them go, so they're not eating you up constantly, day after day, and hour after hour, honestly. um, that if you really want to be a good community member, a good relative, a good brother, you have to find something like that. And what you said really sparked something in me. So, when I was talking about learning how to cope and things, like I said, I internalized a lot of things. One similarity that I did, how I coped when I was younger, was, I had no aspect of how to control my life when I was a young person. I had no control. I literally was, I would say, a zombie, just going through the motions, because how much my life changed because of my parents, mom, dad, grandma, and guardians. And so the thing that helped me cope when I was younger, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going back a little bit, but the things that helped me cope when I was younger were sports, were school. And I had no control over my outside life, but you give me a football, a basketball, or a test, and I'm going to be able to control the outcome of those because of my talent, because of my skill, because of my hard work, and the variables that I can control. I was going to either win on the basketball court, win on the football field, or I was going to win on that test. And those were the things I could control. So that's kind of how I coped when I was younger. After I start growing older and moving through the process, basketball, the competitiveness, I still res ball it up, but it's not, like it was in high school. And plus I got into a whole new realm of competition. So I can't win all the time. You don't play anymore. I haven't played since college. And tests, we get tests every single day, so that still helps me. But once those disappeared, I had to actually start finding out who I was, what things truly what things made me who I was, besides a basketball and a football. Mm-hmm. And so whenever, that was kind of a hard process, but what you said was similar for me. I start feeling it with my culture and traditions. I start feeling it with wanting to learn how to shoot a traditional bow and arrow. I wanted to learn how to be, my father was in and out of my life. I struggled with that. So to fill those voids of triggers and healing, is I'm gonna be the best father that I'm gonna be to my kids. I'm gonna feel that scenario. I'm gonna find healing for myself, and at the same time, I'm gonna give my kids a jump start to move forward in life because they're getting something I didn't truly have consistently. And so them are the things, I guess. What helped me overall was my culture, my faith, my higher power, and really gravitating to those and hanging on to those. But with the question you asked at hand, the things I do right now is, I love traveling, so I like to travel by myself, and that toxic masculinity that we all built up with. My dad was perfect for it. He would be the type, if you wanted to cry for an emotion, he's gonna make you feel some kind of pain in order to deserve those tears. He was gonna give you a reason to cry and all that. And so I was like the built tough guy. But nowadays, if I'm feeling beat up and wore down, man, honestly, man, brother, I jump in my car, man. I kind of, get my, I allow myself to feel. So I turn on, I kind of got my little sad music playlist just to help get my feelings there. But, I listen and I just, man, I release, I cry. I really do cry. And one of the reasons why I cry is because, we think about what comes from our eyes is water. And, water, mini wachoni, water is life. And us as humans, we have the great ability to be able to produce water naturally from ourselves. And most people don't know how powerful water is, naturally, scientifically. However, it's just a force that, is powerful beyond our knowledge. And, when we go through all these trying times, all of these tough times, negative times, our body is so powerful that it's producing these tears for us to let go and heal ourselves. And so, man, I jump in the car, brother, and I just find a good road with not too much traffic and turn my tunage on. And mainly it's some good old, honestly, it's like some good Sundance songs, some good, nice powwow music where I can remember our ancestors, our relatives that helped me that are no longer here. And man, I'll cry it out and I'll ask them for strength. I'll ask them for guidance, and I'll just feel those emotions. And, that's the best advice I can give, is just to feel the emotions you're feeling in not even in a controlled way, but in a safe way, I guess, because I don't want nobody to feel angry and then just feel like they need to go punch out whoever made them angry. But, and what we mean by that. So them are the things that truly help me, bro, is man, I just let it out. When I need to cry, I cry.
Yeah, that's good, man. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's powerful. And even just to be able to make that statement is courageous, just because, like you said, we've grown up in those environments of toxic masculinity where, like I said, you're just expected to be invincible, you know what I mean? And that's not human, you know what I mean? Like, all of us are human. And I think when you even speak culturally, it's the reason that we had ceremony, it's the reason why all of those things existed in the way that they did, was because, like, we knew we had to take care of ourselves holistically, and, we often talk about just this kind of misguided warrior spirit that we've kind of been fed, over the course of our lives, that, you're supposed to be just reckless and unfeeling and ready to do damage at any point, but in reality, like a real warrior looks like a father, like a loving husband and father, someone that's they're willing to feel what nobody else can feel, like that's what, where the strength really lies, and being able to understand your processes of how to take care of yourself. And even what you were mentioning about, our bodies being able to produce water, a lot of people don't understand that, even just in the same way that when we sweat, it has a specific function. It's there to kind of help us to cool down and maintain stability. And our tears are no different. Like, a lot of times it's there as an emotional and energetic release, but it's also kind of like a metaphorical cleansing process. You know what I mean? That's your body's response to saying, hey, you went through something that wasn't supposed to happen, like, and there's some kind of equilibrium we got to establish back here. We need to bring you back into balance. And in order to be able to do that, you got to shed some weight here. So open up and let this through, because otherwise, like you said, we just keep internalizing and we become heavier and heavier. And then it leads to, mental and emotional disorders and physical physical health, disparities and things like that. So, absolutely, man, I definitely agree with you. I mean, that's something I can relate to. And, music has always been something powerful for me, and I would do the same thing, in one of the most difficult parts of my life. That's what I would do, is just, I'd get in my truck and I would just drive for hours, and it would just be a space of processing what I was going through. And a lot of times I would, same thing, man, listening to our ceremonial songs and singing along, and, like just mentally taking myself back to those safe spaces, you know what I mean? And remembering who it was that I needed to be. And there were times when it hit me, that I really, like had to break down and just let it out, you know what I mean? Rather than always trying to figure out how to find the strength to carry it, like, so that it doesn't touch anybody else. But it's kind of like, well, let me go over there. I'll drive an hour that way and I'll let it out over there, so that, like you said, it doesn't make anybody else angry or anything. And then I can come back and be present and be focused and things of that nature, So that's good, man. I really appreciate you sharing that, because, that, like I said, that's a conversation that's really not normal to our demographic, you know what I mean, to us as indigenous males and stuff. But that's what's needed, so that we can understand how to be the, the men and the fathers and the community members and the husbands that we need to be. We need to understand to be feeling and compassionate, and, be able to be supportive in a way, and not just be so self-centered in things, But I'm glad that you kind of brought up that topic of toxic masculinity, because that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. And I think you've touched on it pretty well already, just in terms of how it was that just that concept of masculinity and strength was like modeled for you in your life, But I guess that being said, how do you view that today? What is your understanding or your idea of what healthy masculinity looks like? And what are you doing in your own space to try and, I guess, be an embodiment of that?
So the first thing that I can say that I do myself is I said it before, but I allow myself to feel every feeling I have, and that's definitely crying, like I said before. That's something that us men, we don't, we try to be Superman all the time, and it just hurts us. Another thing, I guess, that I personally had to take into my own account was, really thinking about what I said, rather than, or really think about what I say, in the heat of the moment. It's really hard. But let's say I was, me and my significant other were miscommunicating about something. We oftentimes, we've seen it mimic before, where we're hollering, we're shouting matches. Now it's considering, is what I'm gonna say worth a bigger fight? And the biggest thing actually is also drawing boundaries, not just relationship boundaries with your significant other, but like with, for example, my twin brother. We're twins, we do everything, but I still have to have boundaries set up with my twin brother. I have to have boundaries set up with my other friends as well, to know just exactly, what's safe and comfortable for each of us, no matter how great of friends we are. That's something that, I don't think people are set up enough. And so when they get overstepped, you have all that secret animosity, especially among men, because it's just kind of that toxic, unspoken chest out thing, where they should know better than to be barking on my territory or something, and it's not like that. One of the best things, honestly, though, I think I do, and I added this into my own life about 2 years ago, is really, it's crazy to really say, but if you think about it, how often do you tell your friends, your cousins, anybody that truly you love, how often do you say I love you to them? Just every day. If it's, if it's just seen them, or not seen them once a day and not again for a couple, how do you say I love you to them? More than often, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say 90% of the time we don't say that to our people, because we feel like we're gonna see them again. So within my own life, with my cousins, and especially my circle of my little wolf pack I have, we have a group of men, we call ourselves wolf pack. But within that, I don't care if I see my friends at the gym, if I'm shooting the stuff over at the store real quick in the aisle, if I see them and we have a quick conversation, I'm greeting them with the bro shake. And right when we're parting, I let them know. As funny or the weird looks I get, I tell them, hey, I love you, cousin, or I love you, bro. And they hit me back with the I love you too. And you kind of see some people in the market like, okay,
Yeah.
but that's breaking it down big time. And for people to know that, like that's huge, not just for men to say that to each other, but for you to say that to anybody else within your circle. Not only does that uplift and reassure them and support them, but it's just allowing others that might hear that to be, and within that, there's so many people that tell me, I start telling all my family or friends or anybody, I love you because of you doing it. And you, especially in 2020, we're not guaranteed tomorrow with our relatives. So
That's good, man. I appreciate that. You know what? That's really important. I think that's something within the past, I would say 1 to 2 years that I myself and same thing, man, like the close people around that's kind of become more of a normal thing, to be able to say, hey, it was good, breaking bread with you, man. Love you, brother. And we'll see you soon, or whoever it might be, just because that's something that's been absent for so long. But it is so important, because that's kind of the root of relationship. And if we're really going to get into the root of community and family and really being about what our indigenous identity represents, like love is the foundation of it, like all of it. We had an understanding that we're all a part of something greater. There really is nothing about me that's necessarily so important or significant that trumps anything else around me. You know what I mean? I understand that my breath and everything that I go through in my day is contributing either positively or negatively to my family, to my community, to my people, to my nation, like all the way up, to the entirety of creation. And, like it kind of brings to point as well as, understanding the example that you're setting, because what you're doing in it, like you said, being at the store, being at the market, and, people overhear you saying it and they kind of look at you sideways or whatever the case might be, like it's because you caught their attention and it was like something out of the normal, but you made them think. And in that moment, whether they realized it or not, you planted a seed. You know what I mean? And everywhere that you go, whether it's the person that you're saying it directly to, or it's the people that are around that are hearing it, you're planting that seed and they're saying, hey, maybe that's not so strange, like I wish somebody would say that to me, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And it needs to be that way because there is way too much, like you said, unspoken animosity that goes on in our communities and lateral oppression and all of these kind of things. All of that negativity is so prevalent, but a lot of times even just speaking those few simple words to be able to say, I love you, like I appreciate you, I recognize you, that goes unsaid, and it leaves way for so much negativity and confusion, but I guess kind of coming back around to the example that you're setting in that, in terms of your role as a father, how important do you feel that is? Just your role as a father, just in that simplicity of that statement, how important is that to you?
It's crucial. It's not only crucial, for myself personally, or for my own daughter or my son or my children, but it's crucial for other men in our community to be able to look at and see that, that it's okay, because I never want to ever give off like I'm a perfect father, but I do want, like you said, I want to plant seeds of allowing things are okay. Letting your daughter fix your hair because she wants to, that's okay. It's just allowing others around you to be that things are okay, on how the norm is changing from when we were little to when now we're older and our kids are little. And it's a beautiful thing to witness and to be able to share. One thing I witnessed amongst within men that I look up to and I surround myself with, is that our generation are being fathers like no other generation I've seen before. And that's something that I'm so proud to be a part of, that generation of new modern warriors.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, lastly, I started to cut
yeah,
you
yeah.
off. Thing I was thinking of with the love as well as, it's crucial for fathers, for men, for us, because, most people see the love that you see on Disney movies and fairy tales. That's the love that we all think of when you think of love. It's the hard eyes and kissy lips,
Yeah.
the emojis, but for love, it's a mutual respect between you and I. It's doing little simple things for your daughter or son. It's the, for me, it was grandma when I was a kid washing my clothes and having dinner every night and telling me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. Those are what love looks like and is important in our lives as fathers, and how it can trickle down to those we have effects on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, you really spoke to something powerful there in how it is that love is when somebody sees the best in you, and holds you accountable to it. That's what it really looks like, rather than just always telling you, oh, you're so beautiful. You know what I mean? Or, just kind of superficial things like that, but just really, looking into the core of who it is that you are, and who you were meant to be, who your ancestors prayed for you to be, and holding you to that, and saying, hey, you're going a little too far this way or a little too far that way. Come back to center. Remember, where you're at, and kind of fixing you up to see the better parts of yourself. That's really important. I know, in probably in the recent 3 to 4 years, myself and our company Thrive, and my colleagues, we've been doing a lot of work centered around historical trauma. And a few years back, I think in either in 2017, late 2017, 2018, we launched this initiative as we, kind of came together and formed this company, and it was called Redefine, Healing Trauma in Native Communities. And it was something that, we took on the road, and we took all across the nation, all different indigenous communities. And it was really eye opening. We tried to be as comprehensive as we could in the concepts that we were communicating across in the trainings and in the educational portion of it. But going along all of the stories that came out, it really painted a different picture than what we like to have seen, in terms of like an outside perspective of what Indigenous country represents. And one of the things that I really came to understand, and I really had to hold myself accountable to, was us as men, and where is it that we are here and now today? And regardless of the reasons, how do we become accountable to showing up? We had gone into some communities and these different like youth events, so to speak, and some of them would be centered around culture and reviving spirituality and all of these things. And what I thought was interesting as I was going along is that a good 80 to 90% of those events were all being facilitated by the women in the community. And not that that's a bad thing, but what was really telling was the absence of the presence of our men, because I knew that in a lot of these cultural ways of those specific communities, it was the men who carried most of those ceremonial spiritual leadership roles, but they weren't really present, or if they were, their representation was very minimal. It might be one in comparison to 10 other women that were there trying to facilitate and organize and those kinds of things. But I at one point I stepped forward and I asked one of the organizers after the event, as we were kind of like debriefing and going over everything that had happened. And I said, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but this is something that I noticed, and it's just kind of been on my mind. And what are your thoughts, And the answer that was given to me was like a punch in the throat, straight up. It was really hard to swallow, And what the lady asked me, she said, well, let me ask you a question. And she said, what was the first thing that really stood out that you noticed when you drove into our community? And I was thinking, is she talking about the water tower? The gas station? And I was thinking, no, I mean, I saw those things, but in that moment it hit me, and I remember driving into town, and as soon as I came into like the intersection, what I saw off to the side was there was a group of about 10 to 11 of our brothers, our men, but they were all like, basically alcoholics, you know what I mean? Just, you could tell by their appearance and, just the way they were walking and what it was. And I looked over, and I remember when I saw that, like my heart just sank, and I thought, damn, like that's hard to see our relatives in that kind of condition, because, and what really hit for me was that could have been me. You know what I mean? Because that was something that I picked up when I was younger, the alcoholism. And like you said, I've seen older and younger brothers pass, in that time, from, liver disease and things like that, and I thought, man, it's because I guess I was thinking about the reason I was there too, but it came to the thought of like, man, it's discouraging that this is what our children have to see, day to day. You know what I mean? When they go to school, when they're coming to and from school, like, that's a heavy influence. If it hits me that hard, imagine what it's like to have to be in that space every day for someone, and we all know what that's like. But I told her, I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but this is what I saw. And she said, well, there's your answer. And, like in a way, she was telling me, as collectively as women, we don't feel like we can count on you anymore. You know what I mean? Collectively as men. And you know what? I had to take it, and I had to say, you're right. Like, I may not have been the one standing out there on that corner, but those are my brothers just the same. You know what I mean? And as a man, I have a responsibility to that somehow, to, if I can't take that away from those people, I have a responsibility to put something better in place as well. You know what I mean? So that's not the only influence. And if there's a way that I can help my brothers to see something, or a way that I can help my younger brothers or our sons and our nephews to be able to stand up and grow in a better way, I have a responsibility to that, But it just really opened up my eyes to be able to see the effect that we as men really have on our communities, and have had in a negative way. A lot of times it feels good to be painted as the stand-up person, or the one that the community calls on in those kinds of, situations, to be there of cultural support or whatever it might be. But at the same time, like, we can't overlook the negative side of what's happening. And at some point we do have to, step forward and take some kind of collective accountability for it, but, like, that really comes in the role of fathers. And that's kind of what she had gone further to be able to say, is that, here in our community, we have, children, multiple families, that all of these children extend from the same father. You know what I mean? And the kind of hardship that creates in community. And, like, there was just so many different things. And it was just kind of like, that question that I asked opened up this, like, Pandora's box of all of these, realities, you know what I mean? And at the same time, it was good, because it brought like kind of like a roadmap to some solutions, to be able to say, like, now you kind of see what the problems are. Now you have an idea as to what you can kind of begin to contribute and bring about, And my thought, in as we were kind of putting that initiative together, was, how do we create something that we can bring awareness to this, but at the same time, somehow, as collectively as communities, we can begin to compensate for the absence of us as fathers, or an absence of us as healthy men. You know what I mean? Like, how do we empower, single mothers to be able to understand and find a healthier way of living, and help young people, see better examples and things of that nature. You know what I mean? So it's really important, the role that we have as men, and especially as fathers, because, it kind of brings to mind the thought of just being a good relative. Just because you didn't, maybe you're not the biological father of your son's friend, or your daughter's friend, or those kids that are two houses down the block. But if they don't have a role model in their life, if they don't know what a healthy dad looks like, befriend them. You know what I mean? Show them something, be good to them, give them an example of what it really looks like, so that at least they have some kind of expectation as they grow up. You know what I mean? That those are the kind of people that I want around me. Like, as I grow up, that's the kind of man I want to find to be a father to my children, or that I want to, have as a husband, kind of thing. And same thing with the boys, like, that's the kind of dad I want to be, like, I guess, inspiring them to be able to say, when I grow up, I want to walk like that. You know what I mean? I want to be able to give that kind of goodness to my people. You know what I'm saying? So it's really good to be able to see, individuals like yourself that are taking that responsibility and opportunity, to heart, to be able to say, like, there's something really powerful in this role of fatherhood, in a manhood. You know what I mean? And being able to be courageous enough to explore what that really looks like, versus just what we were taught or what we grew up around. So I guess, in that being said, how many children do you have?
So actually, I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and I'm gonna share it with you right now.
Mhm.
But me and my significant other, we're expecting our tiebreaker. We don't know if we're gonna have a boy or girl, so majority is gonna be ruling here shortly.
Oh
And
man, congratulations.
thank you, brother. I'm hoping for a boy. So I got 4 and 1 on in the oven cooking.
All right, man. That's good news, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing that with us. But I guess that being said, like, what is some things that you hope that your children take away from your relationship with them?
The relationship, I'm gonna start with my daughter first. Two daughters. Um, the relationship that I hope my daughters take away is that they know what real love is. They blow that Disney concept out of the water. They know what respect is. And they know kind of how a man models it, not in the way I treat them, because a father-daughter love is different than, the intimate love. But, I hope they can learn what love is mimicked by the way I care for and treat and respect their mom, and the things I do and don't do as well. We some of our do's can often be toxic. So if they can see a boundary of a line drawn, they're going to know exactly that they're able, she's able and capable of saying, I'm uncomfortable, or I'm comfortable of doing this kind of things. For my son, I always tell him this every day, because he kind of, I feel bad for not just my son, my daughter as well. But a lot of people in our area, they see him and they always like kind of constantly tell him, "Oh, you got big shoes to fill," or they kind of compare him to my shadow, if you will, I guess, or and so I know there's a little pressure on my kids to try to fulfill what I did to do that. But I ensure my kids that they can be anything they want to be. My son can be anything, and I just ensure that I want my son to be better than me, and not, and I guess the goals that I accomplished and achieved, but just the way I treat people with my character and integrity, and all the intangibles that you can't really measure through data.
Mm-hmm. How you were saying that, people in the community sometimes, will let your kids know, you got some, big shoes to fill and things, and the kind of the pressure that puts on them a lot of times, their expectations, that's something too that we've kind of discussed with our own daughters and things, and they've expressed, like, because of the people that we are, and the work that we do, that there's a certain expectation for them to be of a certain caliber, or do certain things, but I think one of the things that I've come to understand in that, and tried my best to communicate with them, is that, that's not something that they need to worry about, because just the fact of them growing up in this presence and having this example, it's already in them. You know what I mean? And whatever it is that they do with their life, it's to be able to look at whatever work that's been done through me, or that I've been able to achieve, or their mother's been able to achieve, and to look at that as just a foundation. That's your jumping off point. Like, do what you want to do to the best of your ability, whatever that looks like, fulfill that. And don't worry about, filling shoes. My shoes are my shoes. You got your own shoes to fill, kind of thing, and those are going to take you maybe in an entirely different direction, but, do it to the best of your ability. Live your fullest example of what that is. But I really appreciate just everything that you've shared in regards to how your life experiences have kind of led into the person that you are today. Personally speaking, as a father and as a husband, and then even stepping forward into your professional environment. And I know, recently my wife Collins and I, we were back around the time of when the election was coming up, we were traveling around North and South Dakota and Minnesota, creating murals to kind of get, the community motivated to vote and things, and to try and kind of even just provide some hope, and it was one of those things where we just had to kind of, we had a short window of time, and putting the call out to community. And, you were one of the first people that we thought of, in the area, to be able to say, let's link up and see if we can make something and happen, and, I wanted to tell you, thank you for, just organizing that and getting it, in play. Cause sometimes, like in tribal communities, it can be difficult to get things, to happen. You've got to jump through red tape and get so many signatures and approvals and things, but, you were able to make it happen. And, it was a good experience. One of the things that my wife had shared is that while we were there in painting, there was one of the men from there in the community, and he had his son with him, I think. And they came walking, from one of the houses, and they walked around, like right where we were painting, and had gone in the store or whatever. And then when they were leaving, the little boy looked back, and man, he was hype. He was like, man, like, that's who I want to be. And he was talking about what we were painting there because, it was the warrior with the shield on the horse, you know what I mean? And, it was something that resonated and inspired him, you know what I mean? But we were both saying like, like that's what it's about, even if it inspires that one young man to be an embodiment of what that looks like, you know what I mean? And to know that he's got examples like you in the community, like that's powerful, but just being able to have the mindset that you have to be able to say like, there's a way and we're going to make it happen. That's, man, I commend you on that, brother. Cause, a lot of times in our communities, we're faced with the nepotism and the negativity and the doubt and things like that. And, having the strength to push through those things and always have your people in your heart, in mind, that's a beautiful thing, but with that being said, how does, everything that you've shared, your life experiences, the challenges, and everything that you've come to, how does that relate to your passion for your work and with Rising Stars? And even if you want to go ahead and share a little bit about that, you can go ahead.
So kind of how you started with our kids, we kind of we were worried about our kids fulfilling what our shoes are, what our own goals and destiny that we purpose is. I never knew what my purpose really was when I was a kid. I don't, just like you, brother, I don't put too much stress on my kids because, the community I'm from that you and your beautiful family got to come visit. I was like born into leadership, kind of, not the traditional way where my dad was a chief or anything, but I don't know. I just was born and in my community was like bestowed athletic ability and talent and leadership. And it was something, truthfully, I never wanted in my life. I just wanted to be, I guess, a res kid. But with all the problems and things I had growing up, I've always was fortunate to be a leader. And so I know what leadership feels like, whether you want it or not. And so I guess I'll never put that upon my kids without their choice. And kind of for fast forwarding, at the same time, my father, when he was in his good state of mind, or my grandmother, even till this day, is known to help our community at all times. They used to have a boys' house in my grandma's basement with 22 boys, and she was like the soup maker for the community, and they had wild horses. And so my family was always like helping, and my dad was always helping when he could. And so I kind of seen my family always helping when we could. And then kind of my life turned where I needed to be helped. And so I had so many great people step into my life, whether it was from my community or other communities I lived in, but they all stepped in and helped me move forward. I guess they, reached their hand down and helped me climb up that mountain. And so when I started moving forward in my life, I was like, how am I going to repay these people? What am I going to do for these people? How can I help out? And all of a sudden, this purpose and this calling just start opening its path for me. And I just start walking. I guess they say you walk the path that's chosen for you, everything's going to work itself out for you. And that's kind of how it does. With the mural that you guys came down, once I seen you guys doing that, I was like, I need these guys in my community because this is awesome. And so we got that to work out. But like anything, you're going to have obstacles and problems and just a little trouble. I always believe, them are set in place to see how bad you truly want whatever the goal is. And I like to win, I trauma response, but I got to win. So I was making it happen, and it was honestly my pleasure to do. Kind of a side story into that before I move forward, but the thing that really helped me with my passion and my ability to want to help and to help was being helped. My community used to live by, it takes a village to raise a child. I was that child that had a hard life. My village, man, my tribe, they just kicked in everything they could, and I always wanted to pay that back. And when my passion of sports and things kind of stopped, I really did. I fell into synthetic marijuana addiction, and it almost took my life from me. And my two older children, they suffered from it. And my spouse, now she suffered from it. And I was really addicted and went through that, and I got through it. and during that healing process and getting clean off of synthetic marijuana, um, one of the things I told myself within that healing process was, I said, man, if I can do anything um, with the same energy, passion, and I guess go-getter attitude um, that I was applying to make sure I had my synthetic marijuana, I was like, I'm gonna be successful at anything I choose to do. And that was in a sense my addict mentality, saying if I can get my drug of choice in synthetic marijuana, if I take this out of my life but still keep that mentality in the legit, true, honest living, I'm gonna be successful. And so that's kind of how I got that mentality to pursue everything. Because when I was struggling, I still made ends meet, but now I'm not struggling and life is beautiful. So I wanted to share that little portion. But with the little kid story, I know I'm a little all over the place. The little kid that seen your guys' work, that's like everything. That's what I try to embody. When we were growing up, it was hard to be Native American. It was hard. I even tease nowadays in certain communities in South Dakota. I don't drive in your community with this bad boy showing because a cop might stop me. Reality, but it's a joke at the same time. It was hard being Indian. Nowadays, our youth, because of your paintings, because of our images that we portray, because of the work we do, we have young people that are wanting to be not like us, but they want to be Indian the best way they possibly can. They want to wear their hair long. Women want to wear ribbon skirts and our attire for everyday life rather than being shamed out for that. So that's a beautiful thing. And one of the things that I always carry with me about success and different things is a lot of people, the schools I visit, the people I encounter are just questions is, what does success mean to you? And what you said about that little kid with his father witnessing his painting is success. That's the greatest form of success, is for our young people to look up, to see you, your wife, your family, your friends, me, my wife, or my family and friends, to see somebody that's Native American, that's doing good things, and being able to see them, in that limelight or in that position to have to look up to, that success is seeing somebody that looks like you doing the things that you want to do. And to me, we'll get more out of that than anything we wish and hope to accomplish.
Right on, man. Something that you had kind of mentioned there, in that little portion was when when you came out of that space of high school and the sports and things, it reminded me that a lot of times in our communities, we've kind of run into those spaces where we've had people that seemed like they did really well, like in sports, and like everybody expected them to kind of go on in life and be the really successful hero and different types of things to that effect. And then I've heard so many stories of people that have kind of passed on, and what happened to so and so, you know what I mean? And that statement was made, like, man, he was like the basketball star, he was the football star, man, he was like the champion fancy dancer. Like, what happened, And a lot of times when we're young like that, we don't realize that we gravitate, sometimes towards sports and things like that as a coping mechanism. You know what I mean? Like, that's what carries us through those kind of things. And then once that goes away, then sometimes we don't know what to do. We don't know where to turn, because now we're having to face our trauma. We're having to face those things that we've internalized, and figure out a way to kind of work them out of ourselves, or find something new, some kind of new outlet. You know what I mean? But a lot of times we get so caught up in the recognition that it gives, and then once that goes away, like, we just kind of like implode on ourselves, because we're carrying so much internally. We have all of this heaviness and darkness and sadness inside us, but outwardly, we've been able to fix ourselves up and appear successful. But then once that mode goes away, then we're left to face ourselves. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, and understand that that's the importance of taking care of ourselves internally as adults, you know what I mean? And making it normal for our young people to know that it's okay to come and ask for help, that it's okay for you to be upset, for you to be sad, or whatever, like you don't have to hide that so that other people are comfortable, but like you need to be able to make that understood so that you can find help to get those things fixed so that you don't find yourself in those kind of situations. And I think ultimately speaking, everything that our communities are going through is because we do embody so much of that trauma and pain that we don't understand, and we don't have the tools necessary to understand it or express it so easily. But one of the things that we do have an ability to do as we become aware, like you and myself and other people like us, is to strive to be that example, you know what I mean, and make it normal to be human, you know what I mean, like rather than standing here and for me to pretend, or for you to pretend like we've never done anything wrong, like we've never made mistakes or whatever, but to be able to say, yeah, you know what, here and now today, these are the things that I've been able to create for myself. This is what I choose to do, how I choose to live my life. But I wasn't always this, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
This is where I came from, and this is the reality. This is the hard truth of what I really went through, and this is what it looked like for me to go through that. It wasn't easy, It wasn't just a one day thing, and I was invincible and nothing ever mattered. But it's like, life took me through the ringer. There was at points where I was on my knees, just in tears and had nothing left. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, here I am, kind of thing, and making it okay for our young people to know that sometimes you're going to stumble, sometimes you're going to fall, but you have an ability to get back up, and that's where your culture comes into place. And I think that's again is something that I see you being an embodiment of in the efforts that you have, in what you've kind of created for yourself, in this rising stars movement that you have going on. Can you share with us a little bit more about what that is and what your goals are with it?
Yeah, so Rising Stars is just a small business that I founded. It has a lot of different, what I would call it is umbrellas. And the reason why I call them umbrellas is because there's a lot of different capacities for it to be successful. Um, Overall, it's a small business that I use to go around and host workshops, speaking to youth, provide activities for my community, and so forth. It just gives me a business platform. But overall, what I wanted to, the message of Rising Stars, I want to share that first. So, um, Rising Stars, I came up with the name of Rising Stars from all our traditional stories that have been shared with me. And every story, from our creation story to our story after our journey here on earth ends and a new one begins, is that our people, our Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, Osheti, Shakoan people, we came from the stars. And when we came from the stars, we landed in one cave and emerged from there, and so forth. Well, within that time, we were given the seven sacred virtues from White Buffalo Cast woman. And in those virtues, she tells us how to become ultimate people. And ultimate people don't mean perfect people. It just means living your values the best you can as a common woman or man, mistakes and everything. And just being the best you can through the embodiment of our values. And when our journey here on this earth is over, hopefully we fulfilled those values in our life the best we possibly could. So when our journey on earth is over, our new journey begins, and we go back to the stars with our ancestors and relatives before us. And so that's why it's called Rising Stars, because here on earth, we're given every single day the opportunity to be better, to rise back to the stars where our ancestors are waiting for us, and our relatives who've gone before us are waiting for us there. And so it just helps us, give us that belief, that purpose, and that faith to become the best we can, heart, mind, and soul overall. And within that, we have so many Native people that have so many amazing talent, skills, knowledge, and so forth, that honestly has never seen the light of day. So many people have so many things to offer that they just don't get a chance, an opportunity. They don't have a platform. They don't have a voice that's kind of big like mine. And so, they have all these opportunities. Some people don't have the means or the experience or knowledge to build a capacity for themselves. So one thing I wanted to do for my people is help them. If they have artistic talent, I want them to get Prairie Edge money off of their talents. I want them to get full service on their artwork, their beadwork, their craftsmanship, all that. I want them to have that purpose of that. And not only that, collectively, if we're gonna, continue to thrive into modern society, there's no going back into teepees the way some people want to insult our people with and say, go back to the old ways. We need to modernize as well. So for our reservations and our native nations to grow, we need economic development. We can't have our tribes being holding everything or being responsible for growing everything. We need to be self-sufficient in our thinking and our ways. And so we need to be business owners. We need to have our own ideas, and we need to be native owned and operated and ran, so that way we can generate for many futures to come. And so it's really complex, but yeah, it's just a positive open space for those that need it, that want it, that just need something. And, it's here built for us to all work together. It takes all of us working together, natives helping natives. So, anybody's welcomed, and it just has a good message. I know I talk about unity, that's unity amongst all people and all tribes, but also the non-native community. One of the things that I know you're passionate about, you and your wife, but is bridging those gaps from our culture to other cultures, bridging those gaps, even bridging history gaps, some of the things that are really hard for our people to talk about, bridging gaps of historical trauma that some people refuse to listen to and open their hearts and minds up. So that's the thing. It just helps us open up doors, and it's a reciprocal bridge for anybody standing on each end, that it's going to be a mutual relationship equally for everybody and all.
Right on, brother. That's a really beautiful, just in every way that you put it together, man. I really appreciate just the depth of value that sits in it, and thank you for sharing, just about the Lakota virtues that you've kind of founded it on, and understanding the spiritual and ceremonial process in which all of that was given to your people. Like that's a really powerful foundation to be able to build upon. And that's one of the things I appreciate about your work, is that it resonates so much with what we're doing as well, as Thrive, and all of the things that we embody. Even just the concept of this new tradition podcast it's about self-empowerment. Like, what does it really look like to be a healthy, thriving Indigenous person today? How are we defining our culture to exist today? Rather than, like in our space, always looking back 200, 300, 400, 500 years and saying, those are the people that I come from. If you want to know what Indigenous identity is about, look at that black and white picture. You know what I mean? Like, because at some point we're going to be a black and white picture. You know what I mean? Like 4 and 5 generations to come, we don't know what it's going to look like when our grandchildren look back at us, but I, for one, I hope that when they look back at me and my family and our generation, that they look at us with the same kind of pride that we look back to our traditional leaders. You know what I mean? And for them to be able to look at us and be able to say, man, like they gave us so much. You know what I mean? Like, those were powerful people. To me, that's what power looks like. Like I want to live and understand how to embody what it meant to be able to wear their moccasins, you know what I mean, to wear their shoes and create something like that. So, it's really good to see people like yourself stepping forward and kind of reaching outside of the same old, I guess, tribal government and tribal services structure, you know what I mean, to try and create some kind of entrepreneurship and enterprise, to be able to say, you don't always have to wait for, a check from the tribe to be able to do what you want to do. There's an ability, if you have something in your mind that you want to be able to create, if you feel like you have something to offer to creation, go do it. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to get all of the signatures. Like, you deserve a place in this life, make it happen. I know that for myself, I, for one, if I were to have tried to run this through, just the tribal bureaucracy, Thrive, and all of the effort that we've been able to do and everything we've been able to accomplish, we'd still be at square one. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have been able to accomplish all of these things, but it was something that came about from being able to say, like, I know that my people, even beyond my tribe, are going to benefit from what it is that we're creating here. And this can't wait. Like, we need it right now. There are people that are lined up at our different tribes, their behavioral health services, looking for help that they're not getting. But if we have an ability to give that, then move it all out of the way here, like, I can take it right to them. You know what I mean? So it's kind of that mindset of being able to say, like, stop waiting for the government and everybody else to help your people. You are your people. You know what I mean? If you've got something to offer, get out there and help and make it move forward. And one of the things too I wanted to say thank you to as well to you for as well is just your willingness to connect with other people and to be able to network and lift other people up and be able to help them along. That it's not in the sense of a competition, like only one of us can shine kind of thing. Because too often, we all run into that in our communities and in Indian country in general. Like everybody wants to kind of be the token one to do it, but the reality of us is there's not enough of us doing the work. You know what I mean? There needs to be so many more of us. So man, I really appreciate you coming on and taking some time out of your day to share your insight about your life and things. But before we conclude, how can people get a hold of you, or how can they connect with you in the work that you're doing? If they're inspired, or maybe they want to bring you to their community to work with their youth, work with their adults, or whatever it might be. How can they get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me is Facebook, really. If you just wanted to quickly try to get a hold of me to make some contact, just search Kansas Middletent. On Facebook, you also check out Wichakpi Naji. And then it has a hyphen that says Rising Stars. That's kind of my Rising Stars Facebook page, personal page, Kansas Middletent. If you want any of my other contact information, my Gmail is just kansasmiddleton@gmail.com. I had to make it really easy for myself. Phone number, if you message me, I'll shoot you some of that information just because I don't think you'll remember it off the podcast. So definitely shoot me an email, the message on my Facebook, on either one, and we can start contacting each other. Really grateful for you, brother, for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing and going back and forth. Last thing I kind of want to add is one of the things you said is I created Rising Stars, honestly, because I was tired of getting told no. Too much red tape trying to do the simplest things with some of the simplest stuff. And so I couldn't understand it. And you said it, we have the power and means to do our own things. It just takes our own hard work and passion. So I really appreciate you helping provide this platform. One last thing I do want to say before I cut it out is, if it wasn't for great people such as yourself, for providing that opportunity and just, helping create space, I love your mission, and I are not your mission. I love one of the things you created within your company, and I use that as much as I can. But, with what we're trying to do, and with what you do, Rising Stars, we're not thriving the way that we completely want to just yet. So it's just still going to happen, but we're far from surviving. So we're out of that survival mode, and we're on that survival mindset, that thriving mindset. So thank you for that, my brother.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate all the good words, and just again, just want to, extend that respect of just appreciating, the example that you're choosing to set, and kind of stepping outside of the norm and making a way for our people to be better, and just kind of charging ahead, like not asking questions, and to be able to say, there's a way to be able to create life to be good. So, one thing, I think that I would like to extend to you, and I've kind of been tossing the idea around and some different folks, but I'd like to bring you back on here in the near future to kind of do like a roundtable discussion with a couple of other brothers as well, to kind of share some insight back and forth about some some certain things, because I think you have a really powerful perspective in that. But with that being said, man, I can't thank you enough for being on and sharing everything that you did. We'll go ahead and put your all of your contact information in the podcast description, and then also on our website. So we'll make it easy for people to be able to access you. And, with that being said, all the relatives out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope that you took something good away from this conversation. I know that I really did. I really enjoyed it. And if it did resonate with you, by all means, please share it out with the relatives, your friends, your family. The more people that we have an ability to bring to the table in these discussions, the more benefit it has for our community. So with that being said, we'll catch you on the next episode. So thank you once again, brother.
Thank you.